And recording now. Welcome to this video. It's been a while ever since I make these videos. They're starting to become like longer and longer in between I'm making the videos and when I'm producing them and posting them. And that's because I've been crazy busy with video work lately. So many projects going on, filming a short film, and there's a ton of behind the scenes stuff, a ton of video stuff that I've got in the pipeline. But because I've been prioritizing that other stuff, whatever. And you clicked on this video because you wanted to know what my opinion is on why the upcoming rumored firmware of the R5 removing the 30-minute time limit, amongst other things, matters so much to me. And it's in my professional work. Now, before I continue, DP Review, the website's going down, and it's going down because that was Amazon's decision, because they weren't making enough profit off of that industry, so they decided to let everyone go, and unfortunately had to shut down because of Amazon's decision, and that's pretty sad. Now, there's plenty of talented people that work there. I'm sure they can find something else, but of course it's easier said than done. So good luck and good fortune to all of those from DP Review. Anyway, going on. Now, why is it so important to me to remove that 30-minute time limit? Now, as I mentioned previously, all of these videos are kind of having a big gap, and that's because I've been working on a lot of projects. Now, some of these projects actually have had me to record on my camera for long recording sessions, longer than 30 minutes. And that's from dance recitals to special presentations to even like comedy shows, which I'll show you some of the footage right here. I actually had to keep the camera recording and then cut and start again after 30 minutes. Now, you say, well, why not use an external recorder? External recorders do solve the problem with the R5 and that 30-minute time limit, because an external recorder can record for longer periods of time. But with this footage right here, I had to record in a very, very tight space. I couldn't even set up my gimbal. I couldn't set up anything professional, and I had to hold the camera handheld for about an hour and a half. Now, holding the camera was pretty tough, but luckily the R5 allows for not only image stabilization, but enhanced digital image stabilization, and the crop factor actually served its purpose because I used that to my advantage to get a closer shot of everything that I was recording, which was great. And because the camera is lightweight with just the lens and the camera body itself with the microphone on top, not having to hold a monitor made it a ton easier to be able to record and keep still. Unfortunately, under such circumstances, when I'm hitting that 30-minute time limit, I've got to pick a certain portion of the presentation to stop and then start again so that I'm not missing anything important. And then in post, I have to edit together. Now, yes, I was able to seamlessly make everything work, so it wasn't exactly very difficult, but heaven forbid I came close and the presentations didn't stop, there would be a split second or two where I wouldn't be able to get the footage. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet, but the fact that that even exists is a nuisance. Now, another reason that firmware time limit is so important to be removed in this camera instead of being like in a R5 Mark II, for example, is that there are cameras out there that cost less money, like the R6 Mark II, for example, that do not have that 30-minute time limit. If I want to mitigate that, why is a less expensive camera having that feature removed? And yet this camera, the R5, which is pretty expensive at almost $4,000 US, still has that 30-minute time limit. But it has the ability to record 8K up to 30 frames per second raw with no overheating. You can record 4K 120 frames per second internally up to almost an hour before you overheat. And who's really going to record slow motion for an hour? That is rare. All these nice little bells and whistles and features, but then you have the recording limit. But then the R5C doesn't have that recording limit. So you at least know that a similar body can remove that recording limit, and even less expensive bodies. So what's the purpose of the recording limit at this point, even when overheating is mitigated? I don't see any point. So the fact that it can be removed in firmware is something that can and should have done a long time ago. I never thought that they would actually fix the overheating before they remove the 30-minute time limit. So that in itself is amazing to me. And if it's coming in an update rather than an updated camera, It not only saves us money, but it also gives us faith that when we buy a Canon camera, we'll not only buy the camera that we get upon launch, if you decide to buy it at launch, but you'll get a much improved camera over time. And that is amazing. And that's something that I believe makes me actually a proud supporter of Canon software, because they'll at least put it out there eventually, even though some of those features should have been out there ages ago, and they just kind of trickle it down. As a Samsung employee, I do remember when the Samsung NX1 was released, and I have it back there somewhere. The Samsung NX1 had firmware updates every couple weeks with like new features, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that, but they were quick with the firmware updates. And that's nice to actually have firmware updates that release so quickly and so often, because when you need firmware and you can actually fix it easily, why wait so long before you actually release it? Anyway, that is what I'm looking forward to in the R5. Grateful that it's going to be in this camera rather than waiting for an R5 Mark II. So what are your thoughts on this upcoming firmware and removing the 30-minute time limit? Let me tell you, I'm grateful, and with that, I think the R5 to me is a darn near perfect camera. Biggest gripe that I still have with it is the IBIS, which is questionable when you're actually vlogging, but not that I walk around with the camera too much, but I do sometimes. Anyway, let me know what your comments are down below, and as always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys next time.